Okay.
All right, well, welcome. Thanks for coming tonight. I think some of you were at our presentation a week or so ago at the town of Prairie. So we're here tonight. This is actually our public information meeting for Indian Lake County Park. And I think we have quite a few people who are actually attending virtually tonight. I think Jolene, is there 49 or so?
49 registered, we don't have quite that many.
Okay, all right. So we'll chat a little bit here to start. And I guess I'll start out. I'm Chris James. I'm Park Planning Manager for Dane County Parks. I've been there 22 years now, so been around a while. I'm excited to do a master plan for Indian Lake because it's our largest park and it doesn't have a master plan at all for it, so it's long overdue. So I don't know if we want to do introductions quick, Jolene.
Sure. My name is Jolene Stinson. I'm the director.
Also got a couple other staff, Park Commission members in the back. What do you think, Jolene? Can we start off? Okay. Well, let's see if this works from here. Works from here. Says, oh, there we go.
I did that one.
All right, so here's our meeting. We did some brief introductions. Jolene's going to fix the clicker for me. We're going to talk about the purpose of this meeting tonight and the master plan, our planning area, the history of the park and wildlife area properties, inventory and analysis summary. Some of these things, if you were at the kickoff meeting, we went over those then, but I'm going to do kind of a quick refresher on those. And then talk about the planning process and an overview of the public input we've heard to date, some of the things we've been hearing from people. And then getting more to current, the vision statement we came up with for the park and the draft plan recommendations. So planning timeline, what's left to go and next steps. And then we'll do a public input session. And so you can ask questions during the presentation if you want, but what we'll do is we'll go through it. And if there's something specific, wait, I don't get that or whatever, that's fine. And then at the end of the presentation, everybody will have a chance to speak then. So if you're here, we'll give you 5 minutes to speak. And I think we'll alternate between people who are here and then we'll take messages in the chat for people who are watching online. Next. Yeah, it wasn't me. That's right. Okay, so public meeting notice. So we try hard to make it known to as many people as we can about our meetings. So we have a project page for the Indian Lake Park Master Plan. And so we updated that on September 8th. And then we posted the meeting notice at the park in 3 different locations. Does anybody see the meeting notice in the park? It goes at the dog park, the shelter, and the main parking lot kiosk, I think. So it was posted there. We did a press release on September 11th. We mailed the town board notice, the meeting we did last Monday, and this meeting notice to all of the neighbors who live next to the park and wildlife area. We emailed the press release to the town of Prairie on 9/12, and then I sent all of the town board members a link to where the plan was at on our website on 2 days later. And then for most all of our plans, we posted to Nextdoor, which is 156,000 plus members. We post on Facebook, Instagram, and our events page. So we really try hard to be transparent and get people out here and talk to us about what we're doing in our parks. So next. Purpose of the meeting tonight is to provide updated information about our park planning process, review the draft plan recommendations for Indian Lake Halfway Prairie. But most importantly, the purpose of the meeting tonight is to listen to all of you that came to give us feedback. Thank you. So why do we do park master plans? It's a formal process for kind of determining suitability of the land for future restoration and development of park and recreation facilities. We look at a lot of different planning criteria: soils, slopes, vegetation, microclimates, existing uses, trail connectivity, views, cultural, historical features, all kinds of different things. What's out there right now and how does that fit with what we want to do going into the future? And then to determine what types of recreation park program areas could work at the park. And it provides a forum just like this for all of you to come out and provide input and feedback on that process. And it also helps us with figuring out some kind of early cost estimates and budgeting for projects that actually get in the adopted plan. And some grant programs that we participate in, you have to have them in some kind of an adopted plan. But we always say the most important thing is to provide a common vision for phased park facility development and park land management that balances public use with resource protection. And the last part of that statement is for sure the most important thing. We're trying to balance public use with protecting what we're trying to save in the park. So this is our project area boundary. In response to the meeting we had last Monday with the town, our planning area boundary is a little bit bigger than what the park and wildlife area boundary is. And so we've actually updated these graphics now to kind of black out those areas in the boundary that are private property. So you can see kind of around the perimeter now we've got privately owned lands, no public access. And I get that. We do have a lot of people that go out and they hike and they may not know it and they stray off the property. And that's unfortunately part of living next to public land, but we're going to try and do a better job of showing that our maps for the master plan. So the history of the natural history of the park going way back. This was a glacial landscape 12,000 years ago, and Indian Lake is kind of right on that transition between the driftless area and the non-driftless region. And that's kind of evidenced by all the steep slopes, steep topography, exposed rock, large boulders found in the draws in the valley floor. This is all information that's kind of on that natural history marker out there, and the shallow Kettle Lake. And the outwash plain surrounding the lake was formed on glacial meltwater, carried large volumes of silt and sand into the valley. So more information on that on the marker in the park. What do you need to know? What's significant is the landscape was created by glaciers 12,000 years ago. And the park is on the boundary of the driftless area. And nearly all of Indian Lake County Park and Halfway Prairie Wildlife Area are within the Ice Age National Scenic Trail Corridor. And that's significant because the corridor is intended to highlight and preserve pre-settlement glacial landscapes. So this park is kind of special that way, where we want to kind of keep it intact as is. It's not something where we're looking to develop a lot of new facilities and program areas. It's really the landscape itself is the attraction of the park. Cultural history, again, going way back, was also inhabited probably about 12,000 years ago. The lake area was used by Native American people for fishing and hunting 5,000 to 8,000 years ago, and even sooner than that. And then in 1830, Chief Blackhawk and his tribe were ordered to abandon ancestral grounds by the Rock River, and the band moved through this area near the park. But they didn't, and one thing, and we'll get to on the next slide, I think there's a marker about Chief Blackhawk by the lake access. That is not correct. The park, according to the Dane County Historical Society, does not have significance to the Blackhawks and their retreat. So we need to remove that sign. The name Indian Lake first appeared on a map in 1873, but was probably used long before that. What do you need to know? Native American people were the first people there. You need to know that. The Indian Lake area was used by Native American people 8,000 years ago and as recent as the mid to late 1800s. And Indian Lake was not a significant historical aspect of the Black Hawk Retreat. There are 6 recorded archaeological sites at the park, and we'll see a map in a little bit. So then moving from pre-settlement history to European settlement history of our area here. In 1848, I think that was the first home, the Coleman House, which is still there, just west of the lake at the end of Lilac Lane. And then you can kind of see the other families that were the first to come there. Interesting, the diphtheria epidemic spreads in 1855, and the family loses 2 children. And thought this is kind of interesting when we're doing the plan, because we're kind of coming right through the throes of the pandemic and reading about this in the past, and history does repeat itself. There's no doubt about it. And then so the Enders family built St. Mary's of the Oaks Chapel. And there's a variety of reasons why. I think some of the information states different reasons, but basically it's being thankful for being spared from the flu virus. In 1923, John Enders sells the farm to Henry Balwig, and then John and Jeanette Marks in 59. And then as the text turns to green, it starts getting more of the park is becoming part of the 1963. The Marks family donated the chapel area, not the entire park property, just the chapel area and access to Highway 19. In 1974, the Coleman House was listed on the National Register. And 1975 is really when Indian Lake Park was created, the whole park. And I think we acquired, Dave, 440 acres or something to that. It was over 400 acres, I know, was the original acquisition for the park property. And then in 2013, we acquired the land north of 19, the former Matt's property, 149 acres. And a lot of that was for the Ice Age Trail corridor. And then more recently here in 2020, Dane County acquired about 300 acres of the former Dega property south of the park. So that kind of gets you up to next. No. Oh, is that you or me? What do you need to know about settlement history? Us, the Europeans, came in the late 1840s. Matz, Enders, Schumann, and Coleman were the first Europeans to settle around Indian Lake. The cabin at the group camp actually came from Lake Mendota, from a camp called Indianola Camp on the north shore of the lake. It got moved there. So that was in 1975 also. And the Coleman and the Frederick Schumann farmstead are on the National Register of Historic Places. The Matz farmstead is not on the National Register, but it is on the Wisconsin Historical Architecture and History Inventory. And the chapel and the Matz farmstead could be eligible for the National Register. Somebody just has to nominate them for that. So I'm going to go through some of these same things we talked about the kickoff meeting, but this is the inventory analysis. And these are some of the things we looked at to make some of the plan recommendations. And they include existing natural, cultural, and historical features, grant restrictions, public lands, and trails in the project area boundary. And the purpose is to collect planning information that's useful for deciding where, if future development of park facilities can occur. And then the other side of it, what parts of the park should we be preserving in natural ecosystems? And so these are most of what we looked at: regional context, land cover and vegetation, threatened and endangered species, soils and topography, recreation facilities and use, cultural and historic features, and existing property special designations. So regional context, Indian Lake and Halfway Prairie are kind of in the northwest corner of Dane County. And it's somewhat of an isolated area in this part of the county and sits right in the middle of the Ice Age National Scenic Trail Corridor, kind of going north-south here. A lot of public land and water, wetlands, huge ecosystems to the west along the Wisconsin River. But actually in the more hilly, driftless region, lakes are a little bit more rare in that part. So they do become a pretty popular place to recreate, as you can imagine. So the analysis of the regional context is the scale and the location. It's a great place to interpret the glacial history of the area. The transportation options to get to the park are limited, except car. Car is usually that's the way most people get there. Lake-related recreation opportunities are limited in southwest driftless region of Dane County, similar to like Stewart Lake, so they are very popular. And the rugged glacial terrain is ideal for expanding trail-based recreation that's already going on at the park. So land cover and vegetation, I kind of picture there's two really big things going on at Indian Lake Park. There's a giant kind of intact woodland across the center. And then we've got some fairly significant pieces of prairie and properties that are being converted to prairie outside of that, and then ag land at the bottom. So the woodland is probably one of the biggest, and then prairie restoration and ag land. So it's really a mix of those things with a lake and some associated wetlands in the middle there. And that mix of large scale open grassland and ag and contiguous woodlot make an excellent habitat for a lot of different species of plants and animals. And the park and wildlife area are relatively undeveloped and provide a kind of a semi-remote experience if you're there on the right day, which is somewhat rare for a large urban county, fastest growing county in the state. Threatened and endangered species, Jeff did the DNR assessment request on that, and these are the species that it came back: rusty patch bumblebee, northern long-eared bat, prairie leafhopper, prairie vole, Wilcox panic grass, and eastern pipistrelle, which is a bat also. In addition, this area has been identified as a rusty patch bumblebee federal high potential zone, and the wildlife area. The park and wildlife area are relatively undeveloped and provide a unique semi-remote experience still in proximity to large urban area. These species, although they come up on the threatened and endangered assessment, doesn't necessarily mean every time you go to the park you're going to see them there. They've been observed in that area and they might be out there, but it doesn't say that for sure they're there. And if you don't know what they are, and I didn't know what a lot of these were, here's some pictures of them that I just pulled off Google. I think one we hear a lot about is the northern long-eared bat. So still, we're just saying that maintaining those large contiguous ecosystem, woodlots and prairies are perfect for the habitats of those species. The other thing too is we do try to leave large dead trees when we can in the park because they're very good habitat for a variety of different things. Unless they're like right next to a trailer or parking lot, most of the time we try to leave those up. So soils and topography, I think everybody that's on this meeting realizes that the topography, the slopes at Indian Lake are down. It's kind of typical of the driftless area. Not real good for building stuff on, which is fine because we're not trying to build a lot here. And the soils are pretty thin too. So really all you need to pull off of this is the park itself is not really good for development projects. And that's also an opportunity because we don't have to, there's not a lot of pressure, I guess, to build a lot of stuff out there because there's not many places to do it. Existing recreation and facility inventory. So the park, Indian Lake Park, is a recreation park, a little bit more developed still, I would say, in comparison to some of our other parks, not really. Mostly trail activities, obviously paddling and fishing on the lake. There is limited archery hunting by permit. Hiking, cross-country skiing are probably some of the biggest uses. And Halfway Prairie is a wildlife area, and that's more typical to like a DNR wildlife area where we have hunting, hiking, wildlife observation, non-groom skiing, and snowshoeing. And the common thread between both properties is the Ice Age National Scenic Trail Corridor. And here's just a map of what's going on out there now. And you can kind of see the center of the park here before we bought the property to the south. In my opinion, this is pretty maxed out on trails and use. I mean, it's pretty dense through there, and this property is a great opportunity to maybe try to spread out a little bit in simple terms. We talked about historical, cultural. There's the European homes, the Coleman House, the Schumann, Matt's Ruins. These two are on private property. The Matt's is in the wildlife area. And then the chapel, and there's a couple marker signs, the historical and the natural marker. But what you should pull out of this slide too is, and not, it's not surprising, there's quite a density of cultural Native American sites and features along the lake area here. So that's, a lot of this data too comes from the Highway 19 project, because there was a pretty in-depth study for the Highway 19 expansion project that uncovered quite a bit of data, and there are a lot of sites along that corridor. So it's probably not the most suitable for park development. And if you do, you definitely would want to do some phase 1 testing before you disturb ground in that area. What's that? Oh, so phase 1 testing is where we actually hire a consultant, an archaeological consultant that goes out and does shovel tests every so often to determine if there's a lot of features subsurface. And a really quick example of where it paid off was at Governor Nelson State Park a couple of years ago. We were going to build the new bike trail, North Mendota Trail through, and we knew we were somewhat close to a site, and they did shovel testing on our center line and said, don't put the trail there. So we moved it about 100 yards to the west, and they came and shovel test again, fine. So it does work when you do it. All right, so mentioned the Highway 19 corridor has a lot of features along it. There's the historical features. I think something that could be cool to do in the park is if from some of the vistas or high points where you could see all of the homes, the Coleman House and the Schumann House and the Matts, be a great place for interpretive signage about those sites from within the park. This slide is, I think this is the last one for inventory analysis. And this is something that a lot of times the public doesn't see, but we do. When we buy land, a lot of times the grant dollars that we use come with certain restrictions or requirements to take that funding. And I guess in general, the park itself, the green area, was lock-on money. And that basically says that whatever we do has to be consistent with park use, and we're not doing anything different than that anyway. There's a small lake protection grant on the east end here, and the Halfway Prairie is the stewardship funding that requires the nature-based outdoor recreation use. And then there's also some easements to the southwest down here. Some of those were purchased for Ice Age Trail purpose that do include future public access, and some are just conservation easements protecting the glacial landscape down there with no public access. So the planning process to date, we've done 2 public information meetings to kick the planning process off in 2022. One of them was right here at the Heritage Center. The other one was at the town of Barrie. And We did give presentations to the Berrytown board on June of 2022, and also just last week on Monday last week. We also had an online survey for this project, and we had 123 responses for that. And that's actually, I consider that a pretty good response to a survey for a park master plan. And we did ask for zip codes on that, and interesting, 20% of the people who took that survey were town of Berry residents. So that's a good sign too, that maybe they heard about the plan and they took the survey. So, and then in addition to that, park staff met with a number of the different stakeholder groups. We met internally. We worked on the draft plan over the winter. And then early this spring, park staff reviewed the draft plan before it went out to prime time. And that's really what I would say took some of the most time of this entire planning process. I thought we'd be up here in spring of this year showing you this presentation, but we had a lot of very enthusiastic and passionate people that had thoughts about Indian Lake Park who work for Dane County Parks. And so we had to spend quite a bit of time working through our draft recommendations with something that we were all comfortable with bringing out back to the public. So Carla, that was one of the biggest reasons why we're here in the fall now. And we didn't have a draft plan done last spring. It was because of us. We slowed our own process down. I did. No, not 23, 24, 22, 23. Yeah. Yeah, no, good point. Last winter. Yeah. January, February, we wrote it, and then we all reviewed it and we couldn't agree on it. So here we are. We're moving forward. You are here, fall of 2023. Uh-oh. Thank you. This is just a quick graphic. We took the zip codes of the people who responded to the survey, and the darkest area green are where most of the survey responses came from. So you can kind of see it. It came from that north central part of the county is where most people that participate in the survey were from. And this is a very simplified graphic, but just kind of puts the different themes of the comments we received into different categories. There was a couple on historic preservation, a couple on cultural resources and engagement, some people asking for mountain biking there. Number of them that were dog and dog park concerns, a lot of conflict between groom skiers and dogs. That's no secret, I think, to people that use the park. A lot of comments about trail enhancement there, more trails, and most of the comments were about, really, I would say anecdotally, from reading through all of them, we heard a lot of don't do anything, the park's good as is. So, and that's good, that's fine, that's fair. So I kind of broke the comments into two different, and this is just to date. So we're still in the comment period, and that's what I hope people will continue to comment. But at a local level, what we really heard, and especially at the town last week and from neighbors, were concerns about trespassing, and what we've all seen too, a huge amount of increase of use in the park, especially during the pandemic. The town road maintenance concerns, obviously now we have the new property and people are going to want to get there, and that road is not in the best of shape. The town has always had concerns about losing farmland and the potential to develop property too. So we're not always on the same book on that topic between parks and the town. And a lot of the neighbors also have concerns about loss of working farmlands, and we do too, actually. So overall, the town and the neighbor concerns related to loss of farmland, tax revenue loss, and impact of public use on adjacent neighboring properties. So that's kind of what we were hearing from neighbors and the local. And then from what I'd call more external people and partners and park users, I think the biggest thing was people said they like the park as is. and to try to just do more of what you're doing there now. And definitely heard don't overdevelop the park. Do not over, and we heard that loud and clear. Overall satisfaction with facilities, some comments regarding signage, wayfinding and interpretive and educational signage, could do a little bit more on that. The dog park should be fenced. We had a few comments, people thought it shouldn't be, but overall people thought it should be fenced, and definitely parking improvements were needed. And a number of people too wanted water access, better water access, and an alternative to just swimming your dog at the boat ramp. More trails, definitely heard loud and clear, and do something to resolve the conflict between groomed trails and hikers and dogs. And parking capacity can be an issue, especially at the main lot on weekends and busy times. So overall, we heard high satisfaction with the park as is, and maintaining the Ice Age Trail corridor and landscape also helps kind of trend our decisions towards lower impact, less developed park. All right. I don't know if my voice is going to hold out to read this anymore. It's in the plan if you want to read it. Basically what this says is everything we've been talking about. We don't want to overdevelop the park. And we want to protect all these great things that are in the park, but please do read that if you haven't, because I think it does kind of capture the overall, I guess, themes of what we're trying to do there and achieve with this park master plan. So the draft plan recommendations, they're kind of a combination of the input that we hear from the different sources, public, park staff, Dane County Park Commission, from the survey responses we got, and then we look at the inventory analysis of more of the physical, natural, cultural. We mix that all together. I always say it's like making soup. It's way better with all the ingredients than just one or the other. So we make soup, and it's a park master plan. And if we've done our job, most people think we've done the right thing. So some of the draft plan recommendations, the big one, roadway and parking improvements. We're proposing some expanded vehicle and parking access to the group camp to try and improve accessibility to that area, especially in the winter time and for special events. And it also will help us get people a little bit deeper into the park to spread them out down to the new property to the south. We're also proposing a new parking lot and future shelter site to kind of spread that program area out a little bit more in the main parking lot area. The maintenance, we're proposing a maintenance road from Indian Trail to the group camp area. That's not for cars just to drive on. That's more for park staff to get through the park for operations and maintenance, and also for bikes to be able to go from Indian Trail and get to the restrooms and facilities in the main part of the park. And then we're also proposing a 10 to 15 car parking lot at the former greenhouse location on Indian Trail Road just for day use. Yep.
Are you going to talk about the road?
Yep. I'll get to some in detail, and then the last slide we'll talk more about overall. Yeah. So here's kind of a blow up. The warming house and the sledding hill area, main parking lots just off the map to the north. So the road we're proposing into this new parking area here would follow the existing hiking trail here, and then we would relocate that just off the ridge to the south of the ridge there, coming back, and then that would tie into these existing trails here. So this, we did spend a lot of time laying out. The road itself was pretty much already there with the hiking trail, but this parking lot is really kind of tucked in between the natural vegetation and the topography. This would have a very little visual impact on the park. Yeah, we could flip down to that if you want to. Yeah, so let me get my bearings here. It's the brown dashed line right here. So the warming house is right here and the main shelter's here. So this kind of curls out off of that back to the group camp area there. Right there. So there's the road coming in and here's the main parking lot. Yeah.
Yes, questions now or say?
I'm almost done, so we'll be done here pretty quick if the clicker works. Show me, I gotta go back. Right there. So we looked at this one and then, so then this is the main parking lot now and shelter area. So we're proposing this road coming down. This area too, we spent a lot of time picking this out to have the least visual impact on the rest of the park. Proposing some screening trees that actually screen it from the overlook way up there. And then this would actually be a bridge that would still allow the trail to pass underneath of it. This idea is that person right over there. If you want, if you don't like it, talk to him. But no, Jeff actually came up with this, and I think it's a great idea. I originally didn't like it, but now I think this works really well. We would come in and this goes up to the group camp then, and I think this would be a great feature for the park.
Pretty much like break it down.
Yes. Yep. So this would go over that gully that comes down through here. So this is elevated and the trail would actually go underneath of it.
Boot camp is where you go to shelter.
Yes. The warming house.
This is the road you're talking about.
Yes. This is how you would get back to that. Yep.
This is what? Been there for many, many decades.
Yeah. I'm probably in the same boat with you, but our visitor and engagement service person told me this is one of the most used education groups. Jolene, I don't know if you want to add to that at all.
So we're doing something about scouts and other. It's not your family and friends.
Yeah. Yeah, and we're trying to improve accessibility to it because right now it's not very accessible, and I think this will help that. The dog park area, we are proposing a fence and a swimming beach, and we're relocating the parking just to the west of the existing lake access parking area there to give it its own, and a vault toilet. This is one we just put in at Selmo Pond, and it would most likely be very similar to that. Trails, we worked with the Ice Age Trail Alliance to realign the trail in the south half of the park. We're proposing another mile of groomed cross-country ski trails in the southern new addition and an additional 2 miles of hiking and snowshoe trails. And as I mentioned before, we'll get to the last map here, bicycle trail connection between Indian Trail and the facilities at the main parking lot. Other park amenities, a new timber frame shelter. This is one we just completed at McCarthy Park. The shelter would be very similar to this, very similar to the one that's out there right now. Scenic restoration, this is a very simple graphic, but just kind of identifying the area we're thinking about for the overlook expansion. More interpretive signage. This is a project Jeff also worked on to update the chapel interpretive signage. Still need some work on the wayfinding, and also potentially look at renaming some of the property in coordination with the Ho-Chunk Nation. Lake and land management. There's a lot of Oak Savanna Prairie restoration work going on that will continue to happen. Another thing we're looking at is prairie pollinator strips on the ag fields in the former Dega property. And this is basically instead of grass strips that you see sometimes on contours, it's pollinators to add more pollinator into the ag area. We do want to try to maintain that large forest in the center of the park. A lot of lake invasive species management work that would continue to go on. Ultimately, we'd like to dredge the lake and get rid of the aerator. That would be our long-term goal. So this is the master plan graphic that kind of shows these different recommendations. And the one I think a couple people have asked about is this feature right here. And that would be probably a paved trail / road in between the group camp proposed parking area there and then down to Indian Trail Road. And this would be brand new. A lot of this is ag land right now where this goes through. This field is proposed to convert to prairie. This would go through that. And then this actually kind of skirts and tucks just inside the woods. So again, very little impact. When we were laying this out and in general thinking about things here, we really wanted to maintain views into and of this valley right here. That was pretty critical. That's one of the most beautiful parts of the park, in our opinion. And the restoration work is really enhancing this now. So we really tried to stay out of this area and not do anything that would have visual impacts to it. I mentioned the Ice Age Trail is being realigned down through here, new groomed cross-country ski trail, and considerable new hiking trail as well on the new property. They would. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and that would be fine too. I think the vision is that a lot of riders ride on Indian Trail as opposed to 19. And we're trying to provide an alternative to get up to the shelter and drinking water off of Indian Trail Road, and then continue north on Mats if they want to without having to take 19. Yeah. In fact, that's where that one came from. I didn't think of that. So I think with that, we'll get to our public comment now. This is the remaining project timeline. We've kind of completed our inventory analysis and initial kickoff meetings. We were gathering input and creating the draft plan, and this is where we're at right now. We have a draft plan to review now, so that's where we're at. And so I would guess over the next couple months here, we'll be taking comments on this plan. And hopefully we get to a preferred alternative that most people are happy with. And eventually the Park Commission and County Board review and adopt the plan. So next steps, I put on here to submit comments by November 1st. If it goes longer than that, that's fine. I guess we kind of see what happens over the next month here of bringing comments in. And the best way is to email comments to me, and contact information. It's on the website for the plan, and it's on this. This will be posted on there, but it's just my last name at countyofdane.com. You're always welcome to write letters or call me too. I'll get it all the same, but this is how you get a hold of me. Send your comments to me. And with that, I think, thanks for coming tonight. Thanks for listening. And now we'll start our public input, and we've got kind of a hybrid mix. So what I was hoping is Jolene is going to read a comment from the chat, and we'll respond or react to that. And then we'll flip-flop back and forth between. So Jolene, you want to start with that?
Before we start, microphone's over. Call mic off. And we'll turn these on. This one instead. That way we've got a microphone for members of the audience or staff here and a microphone for Chris that I'm hoping doesn't provide feedback, which happened the first time we did a public information meeting using different microphones. So for those of you in the audience, please submit a comment if you're getting feedback or you're having a hard time hearing both Chris and audience participation here. So the first question was go back to slide 45, which you've already done. So I'm gonna read the next one. This is from Craig. What is driving the proposal for installing a fence? I oppose the installation of fencing and elimination of access to the forest for dogs. The addition of fencing disrupts the natural aesthetics of the park area, and I much prefer to allow dogs access to the forest.
Yep, so we hear that from some people, but the majority of people feel that it's safer to have the dog park area fenced, and we know that too from a lot of experience at dog parks. So majority of the people are not comfortable having their dog off leash and off fenced areas. We also hear from some of the neighbors concerns about dogs coming onto their property from our dog park. So I think we are in favor of putting a fence in. So Jolene, I think I'll switch to the audience here, or are you want to just
Pass it around, or do you want me to grab the registration list? Do you want to go down them?
randomly choose? You could start with somebody, and we have 5 minutes to speak if you have comments.
Raise your hand and I'll hand you the microphone.
Yeah. Let's start right here. Go ahead. 5 minutes.
Hi, my name's Evan Rafalski. I'm an LTE Ranger Cadet for Dane County Parks, working this season. I just wanted to have a question regarding the sort of landscaping, sort of the way the road is being built towards the group camp area. In my experience, especially when it comes to linear roads that go deep into a park, some examples include Fescue, Token Creek, and even here at Lake Farm. And even at some of the group camps areas that aren't at those parks, there's typically gates that prevent the entry of just public access to group camping areas to sort of preserve the natural feel of it, or to prevent just public visitor entry when people have reserved that area. So I'm curious if there is going to be any gate implementation or any sort of other steps taken regarding the public entry of those that aren't supposed to be at group camp areas. And I know that there was a gate, the gate over at the Anderson Road side of Token Creek was specifically put in for the purpose of sort of preventing throughway movement throughout the park as well.
No, very good question. And we do intend on putting a gate there. And we had a lot of feedback similar to yours from staff when they saw that proposal on there. So we see it more as a seasonal access thing, potentially closed a lot of the time, except for special events and probably a walkthrough gate. And maybe in the winter time during the day so people can get back to the sledding hill, but certainly not open 24/7.
Oh, so the gate for the parking lot
Correct,
close to the
yes.
warming cabin. Okay.
Yes, yes.
Yep. And another endangered species and were there any specific sort of surveys done where the road is planning to be built, as well as the biking trail, to sort of look at the edging effect regarding any of the endangered species within that area, or how it might affect the nearby vegetation? Or was the survey more so done on a park-wide scale as opposed to just where the development is happening?
Yeah, another good question. Not at this scale, we don't do that, but as we transition into construction documents, that would be part of the environmental review to screen for those species. And a lot of times our naturalist Lars Higdon does those for us sometimes.
Okay. Yep, slide. Thank you.
Okay. Jolene, you got another one from the chat?
I'll do a simple one. I can't see where your new shelter would be, and I'm not sure if my the arrow, the pointer shows up online here. Can you describe it in using words? There you go.
Yeah, and I think the best way to describe it would be just west of the existing parking lot. Alex, are you going back to that
I'm trying.
graphic? So if you can picture where the existing large parking lot is at, if you exited out of the northwest corner of that, there's already kind of a road trail through down there.
I kind of circled the.
Oh,
Large open field right there.
yes, correct. Yep, that's right. And Alex did kind of circle it right there. So it's in that large open field, kind of tucked up in the corner, so it's just not like the center. Hopefully that helps. So, Delaney, you want to sit, raise your hand, I guess, if you've got it. There we go.
Given the condition of Indian Trail Road and the number of blind spots on the road, how are you envisioning access via Indian Trail Road to a parking lot being feasible?
Very limited is my short answer. The parking lot we're proposing is 10 to 15 car gravel parking lot, which is mostly just day use. Maybe it's access to Ice Age Trail, maybe it's the limited archery hunt for people who are hunting in that part of the park. It's not at all envisioned to be like a primary day use access point for the park.
So when I look at where the Ice Age Trail is drawn in and where it ends,
Yeah.
are you thinking that people will walk the road back, turn around?
We're proposing hiking trail that goes over the ties into the Ice Age Trail.
So where is that? Right.
So you could park here and hike.
So you're able to stay off
Yeah.
Indian Trail Road the whole time. And what's the time frame then for the farmers who are currently renting? So they have 5 years, is it, for both farmers? Is
Yeah,
that
the
what it
real
is?
estate person.
Hi, sure.
Yeah, so we're actually, signing leases with them right now.
Yeah,
So it's gonna be about 5 years.
okay. Oh, I'm just really concerned about the road and the condition of the road. And I'm also concerned, people trying to access it through the little village of Martinsville or up Whippoorwill Road. Again, Whippoorwill is a really tough road. So that's my big concern. And I'm just really curious as to how that's really going to work out. It seems like with a very lot, you're going to have people coming to see if there's space in the parking lot. So that
You might, and there will be definitely a learning curve where people are gonna figure out, there's most of the stuff we're interested in is on the other side of the park anyway. So.
Chris, we're getting in, talking to you.
Oh. Okay, thank you.
So one other thing I wanted to bring up, and this came up last year at the Prairie meeting, said that speed miles an hour,
Oh, I. Mhm.
which
Is absurd.
is absolutely absurd.
Hmm.
Anyway, that's my concern
Okay,
is Indian Trail access.
okay, good points. Jolene, you want to pull another one from the chat?
All right. This one is from Karen. Can the hikers please have equal amount of winter hiking trails in the main woodland area? Out in the open is very cold and windy. Also, please do not cut down the trees and close the canopy anymore within the ski trail loops. I have seen many old, healthy trees marked to cut. Many woodland burn species that I have heard require connected canopy in deep woodlands, including scarlet tanager, wood thrush, red-eye vireos, etc.
Yeah, no, very good comments. I think we agree with those comments. At this scale and this level, it may not come across that way, but the new hiking trails are somewhat of a combination between wooded and open. It's not just open field areas. So understand that comment, appreciate it. And I think we really, when we lay out the trail in the field is when that final alignment kind of gets decided. So, but good points. Maybe we'll come back over here.
Well, I'm not sure where to start. I'm a longtime user of the park, like 40 years at least. We've been coming to, generally we go up to that warming house. And so, I do feel a little bit territorial about it because it's been such a special place for us. I mean, I don't know how many moonrises I've seen come up over there. And as a city dweller, I just live for those moments when I'm out there. And so for us, you said that proposed parking lot doesn't have much visual impact. Well, we were up there last weekend and we kind of were trying to imagine like to have a big parking lot that size right behind there and how much woods would be lost. We felt kind of really change the woodsy secluded feel of the place to have all those trees gone. 30 cars is a lot. It's a big parking lot. We counted it out in the main parking lot, and it's not quite half of that size, but it's a good size. And so for us, it feels like a really big impact. And then I guess I have a question about how wide the road would be. Would it be like the standard 2-lane, 40 feet wide, including shoulders, or something a little bit more low usage kind of thing? And has there been any thought about just using the new shelter parking lot and then having a paved trail for wheelchair access up to the warming house rather than people expecting that they're going to just drive and be dropped off right at that location?
Yeah, so the road question, our standard roads 2A are 24 feet wide with 2-foot shoulders. For something like this, it might even be as narrow as 22 feet wide. So it's not a wide road. The parking lots are double loaded. So if they're 30 car lots, it's 15 on each side. It's not 30 cars long. But the other thing too is we spend a lot of time in that area where we're proposing that parking lot to fit it in to have the least impact. And the trees that we're impacting are not high value trees. We're not cutting down big oaks or anything. And the other thing too is we feel like how it's laid out, and we talked about this a lot out there. We set it back and tucked it into an open area. And the views and the specialness like you're talking about is looking to the east into the valley and the moonrise and the sunrise and the open area.
We look the other way towards the sunset a lot
Yeah, you could do
and
that
watching
too.
it through the trees in
Through
the
the trees
winter.
going
There's
down.
like these branches and the snow
Yeah,
going through there. So it's the whole package for us.
yeah. And I'd be lying if I said there's zero impact from the parking lot, but I'd also followed it up with, we spent a ton of time agonizing on this. And I want to stress to everybody too, this is not everyday park 7 days a week. It's more sporadic. And the winter time actually is, we also heard a lot of comments from people with young kids that said to the comment before, windy, cold and open. And we got to park halfway to Highway 19 to try to walk our kids up to the sledding hill because Indian Lake is so overcharged with cross-country skiers. And so we're trying to get those families up to the sledding hill and separate.
I can't picture 30 families sledding at once though. I mean, does it need to be that huge? I can see like maybe there could be like a loading zone or limited to permitted parking or something?
Potentially, and I know 30 sounds like, holy cow, it's Walmart. It's,
I know.
it's probably not, but the other thing is if we don't provide as a start enough capacity, then people are parking along the road or off the parking lot into the woods so it's a good point, and we'll think about it some more and see where comments come.
Gonna have to manage that.
Mm-hmm.
No, I mean, literally, given the kind of use you're talking with the skis. And if this is only for sledding, how are?
Gary,
how are you-
Gary, hold on. We got to stay with the bounds here, but to quickly answer you, this doesn't connect to the ski trail, so it's an alternative to get people to hiking, snowshoeing, sledding, and not interact with the skiers. The ski trail does not even connect to that parking lot. So, but we better go back to this, and you can talk for 5 minutes when we get back to you on that.
All right, Craig said, this is a comment, not a question. I would like to see the trails on the hilly wooded sections of the park converted from cross-country skiing to snowshoeing and hiking, and use more of the prairie areas for cross-country skiing in the winter. My partner and I visit the park frequently, even in the winter. We rarely see people skiing on the current trails. With the limited snowfall and frequent grooming, challenging terrain, trees sheltering the trails from receiving snow, people hiking on the ski trails, etc., they will likely continue to get little use. Even as an avid expert cross-country skier, I no longer ski there. In contrast, we see many people walking on the trails in winter. We feel it would better serve the community if the hilly, heavily wooded trails were converted to snowshoeing and hiking trails, with more of the flatter open area used for cross-country skiing, where it is more amenable for all skiing levels. Will receive better snow coverage and require less coverage to be skiable.
Yep. So, Indian Lake is probably our most popular. It's one of the most popular cross-country ski parks in the state. So I don't think we can eliminate cross-country skiing there. And also having the trails in the woods helps to hold the snow because it doesn't have as much direct sunlight that we see out in the open areas. And also, believe it or not, I don't ski myself, but I was telling somebody before the meeting that I'm terrified of those hills, but people love them. And we got those comments through the public input process, how much people appreciated those just extreme terrain that I'd die if I tried to do them, but people love them. And I think that's working. What needs to happen is on our new property and in our park expansion areas, we need to get the hikers and the snowshoers out of the cross-country ski area and give them their own separate areas to help address that issue. So I think that's the direction we're going. Who wants to raise their hand? Huh, you didn't raise his hand. Okay. Go ahead.
Gary Warner, I've been a volunteer for the Ice Age National Scenic Trail for about 3 lifetimes or so, something like that. Got a couple of different comments, partially a question. First off, I really applaud your involvement with the Ho-Chunk and the other tribes to get their input into management and potential interpretation and even name of features in the park. You're riding a trend that I see across the country at the federal level and state level and other levels of involving the tribes in ways that they should be involved and would have been otherwise. I mentioned to you before the meeting started, I think I totally agree with the notion of the importance of the cross-country ski areas in the woods, the value of that resource. I would urge you to consider closing those trails to hiking in the summertime to let them revegetate enough so that they would stop eroding. Maybe eventually you could reopen them to some use in the summertime, but they were laid out in ways that are not sustainable from an erosion standpoint. They work in the wintertime for skiing with snow on them. So that would be one recommendation. The other, I noticed in the plan the comment that the vegetative management plans are yet to be done. And I think one of the things I would hope that you're considering in that process is you're showing some prairie areas here in the park, including halfway Prairie, but also to keep in mind that you have with the Springfield Hill natural area about as the crow flies, maybe within 2 miles to the north on the north side of Highway 12. And then to the south of Indian Lake, you have a large piece of property up on Schuman Road, which is currently mostly cropped, but eventually will become prairie. And then south of that, you have the Liebetrau Prairie, all part of the Ice Age National Scenic Trail. And I would recommend that we start thinking of these areas not as separate sites all by themselves, but how they may interact from the species. And I'm not talking about the plants, I'm talking about the insects and the birds and such that might hop from island to island along them. Last comment is, you mentioned obviously a lot about the group camping area. When the Ice Age National Scenic Trail Corridor was planned here in Dane County, your predecessor, Jim Miller, and I were involved with that. Indian Lake was considered to be one of the places, like Badger Prairie County Park, that camping would be available for people backpacking on the Ice Age Trail. And unless I missed it, I didn't see reference to that in the master plan, and I'm hoping that that has not been lost in the process.
No, good points, Gary, and questions. Yeah, and I guess I had thought that the group camp was available for Ice Age Trail camping. Is that right, Jolene?
So we do let through long-term, long distance, overnight, or through hikers camp. And we do ask that they request permission from park staff first, so that we don't just have people, so we know, and our rangers and our field staff know when it's happening, and we're still doing that. So we could certainly talk about including some language allowing that in the master plan report, because in practice it's happening.
Okay. Are there any more chat questions?
There are more chat questions.
Good.
Oh, what is the need for a second shelter so close to the existing shelter?
Yeah, and at this scale, it looks like it's very close, but it's actually not even within eyesight of the existing shelter. And it's a little bit farther than it looks on here. With that said, though, too, from a management, maintenance, and even park development perspective, we don't like to spread stuff way out. It's way more efficient for our staff to have kind of clustered development, just like clustered development and housing or whatnot, but yet still enough separation that you're not overlapping uses. So good question. I think when you saw it in the field, though, you would see that it's really not that close at all to the other shelter. So.
First of all, I want to credit the Ranger Cadet for his wonderful comments. Thank you. I've got 5 points. One is the parking lot on Indian Trail Road. We're concerned about the timing of the creation of that parking lot, given the impending changes on Highway 19, reconstruction of Highway 19, and that overflow of traffic will go from Highway 19 down to that new parking lot. So please defer creating that parking lot until after the construction of Highway 19 is concluded. please. Second of all, can you give us some data at some point, Jolene, about the frequency, the number of days that the group camp is used? At some point, it'd be interesting to know
Yep.
that. The new pollinator field that's in pink right there is an existing agriculture field, if I understood.
Yep.
So that won't be an ag anymore.
Very long term. This, like Jolene, like
Shireen?
said, thank you. I think that's 5 to 6 years out at least in crop lease. I think transitional, we might look at pollinator strips in there, but ag is going to be the use for probably the next 5, 8. 10
And how
years.
large is that field?
Oh, I bet you it's about 60 acres.
60?
Yeah.
That's a lot of ag land to be lost on our little tiny township, which is primarily agriculture.
It is. And then from our perspective, it's a big piece to just convert to prairie. There's no way we could convert all that right away.
I'm aware of that because I've transferred some land to the park that was already planted in pollinator habitat that has not been maintained as pollinator habitat.
Mhm,
So I'm concerned about the park taking on that scale,
mhm,
taking agriculture out of,
Mhm.
taking that land out of ag to neighbor farmers. And given my experience with the lack of management of an existing field that you've acquired that hasn't been maintained that way. I want to shift over to the dog park for a moment. When I was looking at the 2 maps of the dog enhancement areas around the lake, it looked like it was an overlay of the archaeological areas. And I'm trying to understand, if you don't do the first, whatever
The phase 1.
phase 1 archaeological, what impact would be dogs using that area, digging, running in and out of the lake, and an archaeological area?
Do you want me to answer that?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So that is a high intensity area. And even to propose that parking lot there, we have to do a phase 1. The dog use itself will have little to no impact on that. But I already have concerns about, will we really be able to build a parking lot there when we start digging?
I do too.
Or testing there. So to be seen, but we realize we do need a new parking lot.
Yeah.
So that's our first option we're going to investigate.
So what's your plan B if that doesn't make the phase 1 archaeological test?
We would probably expand our phase 1 testing.
Mhm.
There's kind of a level plateau all the way across there. And we'd have to keep searching. I think it'd be pretty rare if the entire thing came out positive hits.
Okay.
Not impossible though.
Yeah. The paved bike path, AKA maintenance road.
Yep.
That would be 24 feet wide is typically,
No,
oh,
that would just be a one way, maybe 12.
okay.
Yep.
And why does it have to be paved? I understand it has to be paved for your maintenance vehicles, but it's really kind of a misnomer to say it's a bike path. We need to pave a bike path.
Well,
It
paving
seems like it's a little way to kind of cover up the fact that you're going to have a paved maintenance road.
and it's both. The road bikers definitely want a paved surface to ride on, but from a maintenance perspective, a gravel road for us, for our operations, is way higher maintenance than a paved
Got it.
one.
And then I'm just going to circle back to my favorite point, which is the parking lot and the concern that we have for overflow of that parking lot. And not only do I ask that you postpone creating that parking lot until after Highway 19 construction is concluded, but when you do create that parking lot, put up some barriers so that some, I don't know what fencing, but those metal,
Stones probably to keep people from just driving off, and probably fencing too,
Yeah.
to keep people from just driving over. Yeah.
Yep. Thank you.
Yep.
That's my conclusion. Thank you.
All right, next question from Craig. What plans do you have to improve the shore area to make it into a dog swimming beach? As owners of a water-loving dog, we support the concept of a swimming beach, but only if the quality of the shoreline and surrounding water can be significantly improved. It's currently mucky and weedy and full of algae along most of the shoreline. It's currently not at all conducive to use as a dog beach. Without improvements, it could be a health hazard for dogs and could be a nuisance with dogs getting mucky.
No, good questions, good point. I have a water loving dog too. And we are looking at, though, we would have to do shoreline improvements there. We would probably bring a backhoe in. We'd have to pull back the organic material and get down to sandy gravel and do the same out into the lake too with pea gravel. Very similar to a beach that we'd build at a lake like we did at Stewart Park. So it's a good point, and there would have to be physical improvements to put a dog beach in there. Yep. By here, let's try and get through people who haven't spoke yet, and then we'll come back to
My name is Randy Breinig. If you could just remind everyone when the Highway 19 work is going to start and finish, and then how you expect that to impact the existing park off of 19, and what you might think might happen on Indian Trail, and how you might approach that to be ready for it. And then just as another note, or a question is, your approval is looking to be from the county board sometime in the very near future. Is that correct?
I wouldn't say that.
Not necessarily, but
Yeah.
okay. So pretty much everything you're planning here, we're looking at several years down the road. I mean, you'll probably do some things. It's going to be kind of pieced together as things happen. And I guess I'll just let you comment.
Yep. So the Highway 19 project, there is a web page for that on the DOT website that has their schedule. I haven't looked at lately. It's been kind of moving around. I think what I've seen, and Jeff or Alex, I don't know if you've looked at recently, but I thought this winter they were looking at starting some of the work, is the last I saw. And I don't know what start constitutes, but in earlier discussions with them regarding access to the park, they feel that they're coming in at it from both directions. And they said there would not be a time when both accesses would be closed at the same time. Or if there was, it would be for a very short time. So there was kind of a phase approach to that. And regarding the timing of the improvements, I think in the plan, we kind of give a laundry list of ones that we think are higher priority or more immediate need. I think some park trying to do right away. I think some of the things like the bridge and the road back to the group camp are probably a little bit farther off, but maybe just creating an access to a new parking lot where that future shelter would be, just try to relieve some of the pressure of capacity on the main parking lot might be something that's a little higher priority for us. But a lot of the recommendations of the plan, you're right, they're 2, 3, 4, sometimes 5 to 10 years out before we get to them.
All right, the next question is from Pete, not Pete here. Can you explain more what a conservation easement is and what do the current easements mean? You want me to hand it to Shireen?
Shireen, do you want to answer that? She's our real estate coordinator, so she knows better than anybody.
Tonight.
So I should probably hand it to Carla, actually. She she actually did work with us on a conservation easement. So basically, it's a tool that we use to protect land from development most times, but it also just the landowner keeps the land, they own the land, and we actually have rights either development rights or sometimes even a public recreation rights in the form of maybe trail easement, things like that. But it's just a tool that we use for protection. So, and we do appraise it, and we do, pay the landowner for those rights. So is there a second part to that question? Okay. Oh, yes. And it is in perpetuity. Thanks, Carla.
My name's Karen Daga. I live on Indian Trail. I'm wondering about the land that you bought from Carla, that right at the end of our farm, where our farm ended, that small acreage. I don't know how many acres that is, but Carla alluded to the fact that it's having a bit of a hard time. It's really not doing well. And I'm wondering if there's any plan to do any care of that. It's absolutely full of multiflora rose. It's just being ruined by not anything happening with it. And also, I've been trying to walk through there to get, to the trails in the park.
The north, yeah.
And it doesn't seem like it would be that big a deal to have just to have a trail. It could just be, mowed through part of it, and then, go through that along the edge of the field or something like that. It would be just a hiking connection, between Indian Trail and the trails, sort of near the dog park, but yeah, right there. Exactly.
So they did start, and we told them to stop. And we told them to stop because we hadn't finished the plan yet. And we wanted this plan to go through its planning process to make sure that for sure that's where it was going. And so we're getting close, and yes, the trail would get developed through. And then that also leads into the stewardship, all the great stewardship work that the Alliance does for removing multiflora rose and invasive species. So we're very close to that, but we wanted to get through this plan before we develop that trail.
Yeah, because multiflora rose doesn't wait for anyone. It gets so bad and so thick that it's huge to try to get through there. And this is right where that land is right now. It's at a really critical point. It's so pervasive in the field.
I have lots of battle scars with multiflora rose. And
yeah.
I think a lot of our staff do. I totally get it. Yeah, it's nasty stuff.
Because right now you just have to bushwhack through that, and it's really slow going.
Maybe I guess what I'd say is that it's kind of a positive, because we really didn't want to open that connection up until for sure we knew that that's where it's going. That's what we're doing. So, but we will get there. Yep. Soon.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to read this one from an anonymous attendee, and I hope that the sentiment comes through if I read it as written. So it says, to build on Indian Trail Road, with the proposed trail off of the Indian Trail on the south end, in the newly acquired land on the south end, how will having that trail heading towards the private owned land stop from having the property proposed parking lot? No overflow. Maybe for the person who typed that, if you could type it out so it made a little bit more sense again, I would, it might help us get better to the point. Maybe you can talk to what you think he's saying.
Well, what I thought he was talking about was the north-south trail going north from the Indian Trail into the park. So I guess I was confused by, he said, how are you going to stop it from going at the private lands? But maybe I might know where this comment's coming from. And he might be seeing this proposed hiking trail coming to the south. So he might be asking, how are you going to stop people from jumping on this? This trail is not paved. It would just be a grass natural surface trail. So it's not going to be attractive for bikes. The bikes are really trying to get to the destination of the restrooms and the water here and then on up to Matt's Road. So I think this would not really be that attractive for bicyclists, if that's what your question was.
Go back to the room then.
Hi, thank you. My name's Pete. I'm the race director for the trail run at Indian Lake for the last couple years. So I spend lots of time thinking about all the trail facilities here. I want to thank you guys for putting this together. I know master plans are a ton of work and it shows. So thank you for that. I just have a couple of comments and questions. I kind of want to reiterate, I feel like this came through from a couple people already, but I have some concern about the paved driveway to the group camp. Just, in terms of having, I know it's restricted, but vehicular access into the kind of the core of the park. I'd want to really think about that and make sure that that's the amount of use that the group camp is going to be getting in the future warrants that level of intervention. I do like the bike path though. I think I've ridden on Highway 19. It's not fun coming up from, Enchanted Valley from the south, and being able to get into the path provides a way to get to the park from Madison and other areas that doesn't rely on cars. So I think that's a really nice option. I would love to see it be natural service like crushed limestone. I understand the train might make that a big ask, but I know for our race, parking is always an issue. I know parking is a big issue in many of our high frequented parks. I imagine we'll need to add lots in some places. I would encourage just some thought about, if we widened the Matts Road driveway to intentionally accommodate parking along the side there, that might be a way to add a lot of parking without a lot of visual impact or impact on other natural resources. And then finally, I think the dog park fence, I'm kind of agnostic on it. Right now, though, that's very much a shared use space. The Ice Age Trail currently goes through there for the near future, at least. I think not having it be fenced kind of puts a little bit more of an onus on the dog owners to assess if their dog should be sharing that space with other users, rather than this is a dedicated fenced dog park. You might end up, I could imagine you could end up with more conflict. But just a thought. All right. Well, thank you for all your
good comments.
For everything.
All right, next I'm just going to read a quick additional point that Nancy wanted to make related to her prior question. She would not like the ski trails intersected by other trails or roads. The wonder of Indian Lake skiing is being isolated back in the big forest without intersections.
Yeah, and I would just to Nancy say that we're not proposing any crossing of the trails with our new facilities. It's pretty much going to be as is. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been involved with this for a lot of years. And first, I disagree with a lot of you, but I'm happy to see attention paid to the group camp. Before COVID, I used to at least 2 different Boy Scout groups that camp there. I go speak with. A lot of daycare, and the one Baptist church in Madison used to come once a month. Bringing buses, and if we can maybe get the buses closer to the area where they want to all sit down and talk and whatever, I think it'd be a lot safer for the kids. So I'm happy to see that. My biggest thing, of course, is the chapel. Telling Chris and Gary, when we got here, I walked to the chapel in 1955, and I've been there every single year since. And I can tell you it's getting a lot slower walking at this point, but I get there. But I'd love to see us find some way to make it easy to get up there. I'm getting a lot of complaints from people. It's eroding. Obviously, it's got a lot of feet on it and it's steep. So we're getting eroding. Steps are huge, especially for short-legged old guys. It's a big step to get up there. So if there's anything we can do, making it easier to get up there. Chapel's one thing. The view was fantastic. You know, I'd love to see anything we can do. I don't know if there's a trail we could put around the hill so you gradually go up back there. Just something so we can get people up there a little easier. Oh, and Indian Lake Trail, I used to be a town clerk. So I'm surprised that the town board, I think they can drop it to 45 without any problem. Beyond that, they have a lot of state limitations. But, you know, I really do wish they would go to 45. And that's a beautiful trail, but it's a terrible, terrible road to get any speed on. It's not good.
There is language in the plan about trying to find an alternative route. We don't own the property right now, but the landowner has allowed us access from there just for maintenance of prairie and things like that. But it could also work for better access for people too, to get up there. So that's an alternative, I think, too, though, like Dave was mentioning. You know, is there a way we can make the existing way more of a ramp and landing than all steps going up? Might be one way to do it. Or is there a different alignment that goes more gradual up the slope? So we hear that comment a lot, though, about it's pretty tough to get up there for some people, for a lot of people. So.
All right, I have some further clarification too from our anonymous attendee online who was looking for the South Trail from Indian Trail heading south towards Enchanted Valley and wanting to prevent people from trespassing.
Yeah, and to that participant, we actually went out and reconned that after that meeting. Kind of looking at boundary signing there was one thing. I do think we could probably boundary sign that a little more frequently. And I did not go on that visit, but from the pictures I saw sent, it looks like our signing is kind of overgrown on that property line now too. So that could be a starting point on the trespass issue. And I do understand and appreciate your concern about the trail. We did look at the loop going around the proposed prairie on top up there too. And I know it looks like on this plan that it's so close, and I'm sure from your perspective that is. We did look at actually an alternative alignment of that coming up that would turn people to the north more than going right up to the corner along the fence line. So that's something we're looking at for that as well. And if you're the same anonymous participant, I think you are. We also came up and drove down the dead end road to your house, and there's two signs there that say no park access. One of them I think would be much more effective though if it was in a different spot, because you don't really notice unless you're looking for it. So we can talk more, and I encourage you to just give me a call and I'll come out to your house and talk to you if you'd like. So.
Hi, my name is Brock Woods. I'm an accomplished skier. I've been skiing at the park for over 40 years. I sit on the Madison Nordic Ski Club's board. I represent advocacy for trails. So that's kind of who I am. I I've used the park all summer long. At other times, I used to take my kids to the group camp and read Little House on the Prairie to them in the dark, you know, with a fire in the fireplace. So I've used the park a lot. Thank you for doing this. I apologize, I'm not fully up to speed in this. I just found out about this 2 days ago. And so we haven't had time to put together a formal proposal from the ski club. We can do that if you're going to accept comments, you know, into the future. I have 4 concerns that I thought about right away, and my granddaughter and I went out and walked the park today to try to make sure that my memory matches what's out there. And I'll get to those concerns right away. One, I would propose, I know you put a lot of effort into that roadway. You already have a gravel roadway that gets down to the bottom of the sledding slope. I don't understand why you can't improve that. You won't be taking down massive trees in the woods. You won't be affecting the habitat. My concerns are mostly habitat and skier safety. So if you use the old one, you can have a parking area here. My granddaughter and I looked that up. We think 20 to 30 cars is way overkill for that, although I'm not fully apprised of how many people use it regularly. I've seen the Boy Scouts camp there, walked around their tents, all that kind of thing. But I would propose that you use this route, keep a ski trail to the north of that. You don't have to go through the woods. Going through the woods, you could redo the ski trail and make it more fun. I understand that. We can talk about that if you want skier input there. If you do take the road to here, keep a smaller parking lot and not have so many cars there. The bike trail paved across the park. The bike trail is a great idea. I bike here in the summer and I ride Highway 19. I know what it's like. Having a trail across there would be great. My concern for safety for skiers is a paved route. I understand now that you want something of a paved route from there for maintenance, and I can understand that. If you start the bike trail here, instead of running through the woods, you're going to cross ski trails at least 3 more times if you have it where you've got it proposed. And we walked this down here today. It's really difficult to get through there. You're at the bottom of a big hill. Any place where you're at the bottom of a big hill, a paved trail is going to melt off sooner. Skiers coming down the hill, they're not going to be expecting bare ground there. And so it's a safety hazard for skiers. So if you run your bike trail from here, keep it out in here. And I couldn't actually see these yellow paths on your map online. It was difficult to see. But if you take your bike trail up here, come across here, you've got one cross over the trail, nice flat spot there, and the skiers are going this way anyway. Very safe for skiers if it does melt off. If you're convinced you need a paved trail, that would be a much better place to put it. So first concern is the road, second is the bike trail. Another one is this. This is steep. I applaud the work you've done there. You've got a lot of new gravel there. No rocks showing there practically today, walking it. My concern is if you don't have a connector from here to here, you're going to send skiers all the way around here. How are they going to ski this? The only way they can do that is to come up this steep hill. Most citizen skiers won't do that now. It's too steep and too long. Once you're here, you're already up pretty high. This is steep. If the terrain would allow it, it'd be great to have a trail put somehow in here that reconnects. Otherwise, you're going to miss all this real fun ridgetop skiing that, like I say, we've been doing for decades and decades. Fourth thing is if you have a parking lot here, it'd be really easy to put a 2-way connector here so that in those winter weekends, when the parking lot up here gets full, overflow could come here and then they can at least get to the ski trail. You do that, it won't be bothering any of the other users given the trails as you have them laid out. So those 4 things in particular. I really applaud having Kevin there. As I said, I've used that with my kids and grandkids. It's a real blessing to have. There are some other possibilities in terms of trails and walkers and skiers. I work with the city of Madison Parks, and we've been developing trails for snowshoers so that in the city ski parks, the walkers and the snowshoers have legal places to go in the wintertime. So you avoid that confrontational aspect to all that. So great comments. I'm listening to them all. I'll try to add some others over time. Maybe we can get something from the ski club if you want it.
Yeah, why don't you print out one of these maps and draw your ideas and send those right in to me?
We took photos and video today.
Awesome.
We just didn't have time to put it together before this meeting.
I gotta tell you a quick side story. You talked about using that gravel road. I was looking at Alex and Jeff, watching for them to smile. We tried our hardest to figure out. I can assure you it doesn't work. That's where I was dead set. I wanted that road there and nowhere else. It doesn't work there.
You'd save so much.
I
I'd be willing to walk out there with you. You can show me.
I would meet
I'd
you
be
out
happy to
there.
do that.
Yeah, for sure.
Again, that bike trail coming through here, you cross the trail one place in a safe spot. So
yeah, and that part, we're just trying to keep it tucked in the woods to keep it out of the view of we call it the big valley.
yeah, both of these trail crossings here are iffy. There's a big downhill.
Yes,
here,
I'm intrigued by that. Yep.
and another big downhill there too, where you've widened that curve at the bottom where most skiers don't make the curve. So anyway,
yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right, we still have a couple more online.
Okay.
Currently, the group campsite at Indian Lake is listed as adult chaperoned youth groups only. Would this remain the only people that could use the group campsite, or would it be open to all?
Adult chaperone for youth only.
Yeah, youth groups.
Jolene, if you want to answer that would.
Yeah, it would likely remain only the chaperoned youth groups.
Yeah, not just like you were saying before.
Yeah, not a party place, which is what happens in a lot of our campsites. I realize there are a lot of campers that don't do that, but we operate 5 campsites and several other group campsites too. And we see, yeah, we see a lot. Are there more comments from the room?
Do you want to go back to Tom first? And I think that's the.
No, Tom Thorson, really appreciate all the comments from everybody and Chris's presentation. It's really good. I saw on the bottom of the first page, or one of the pages, about returning the year-round lake ecosystem. And I'd like you to talk more about what that plan is, because I think that is a resource that really needs to be enhanced and protected.
Yeah, so obviously we've been trying really hard to remove carp from the lake and to restore the lake ecosystem with somewhat artificial intervention, I'll say. I think long-term though, similar to Stewart Lake and Mount Horeb, we need to create some sediment basins where we have contributing water at the inflows there to keep sediment from getting into the lake. And then the ultimate fix is to dredge it. And just like up in Mud Lake, right over here, a stone's throw away from here, put a dredge hole in it. It sustains year-round fishery without aeration needed. And it gives you a much more diverse aquatic plant community, much less favorable carp rearing habitat. So we can't just do it right away because you got to fix the problem first. But I think long-term dredging it is the final end all fix for it. That would greatly improve it. That's my opinion on it. Dave? Private property to the east of the park. It is. That would be, if we can't do what we need to do on our side of the driveway. Yeah. Dave, I don't know. You've been by that lake for decades. I don't know if you've got thoughts on that.
You dredge first, I'll get that tractor trailer in the middle. That tractor guy really first to try and get his car. Your net's full. Yeah, it's been a minor effort this year. They got, I think, 1,000 or so of carp out this year. They've gotten so many, but carp are prolific.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've planted, I think the friends even planted more plants and everything, but until we can get the the carpet handled and get the muck from coming in. We're better, we gotta get that done.
Yep. True. Tom, did you have more that?
No, I just wanted to expound
Yeah.
on what, because that is, it's just touched upon. I think it really is important to get that lake in much better shape, which would include the, all the things you mentioned.
Right. Yeah. More chat?
There's at least one more in the chat that we had a second one come through. So this, I might have to open it up to the group. I don't know that any of us can answer this from park staff. Does anyone know where the original Endress house was? There's some history in this. So trivia question. I like that.
Dave, do you know?
Bottom of the hill towards the lake. There's some maps going back to the 1800s that show the original parcel with a couple of buildings on there. So I believe it's in that vicinity towards the lake.
The base of the hill that the overlook is on?
Exactly. Going towards the lake though. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All right, good. Thanks, Jeff.
Are there more comments from the room?
Have you thought about accessibility in terms of paved trails for people with walkers and strollers? And then another question I had was, is there a way to walk all the way around the lake? I tried that once and it didn't seem to find a way through there. And if there could be such a thing, then that would kind of preclude not having a dog park there. So just wondering what your thoughts are on that.
Yep. And the paved trail, that actually folded into back to the popular group camp topic, is that even if we're not allowing vehicles to drive back there and it's a gated road for just temporary access for events and group camps, it still provides that hard surface, very walkable way for people with less mobility to get back to that part of the park. So that was a big improvement for that. Just paving though the trails in the park and beyond from parking area.
I guess I was thinking in terms of around the lake.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and on the south side of the lake, obviously there's the gravel road that is pretty improved. I mean, it's not paved, but it's pretty easy walking. And then through on the west side by the dog park there, that's obviously open field. And there is trail along the north side too, that the snowmobile trail follows, and it gets kind of wet there then on the northeast side. But it does connect around and over and down. I guess we had thought about putting boardwalk in the low wet area to make that more walkable on that northeast side, but Dave's shaking his head. Oh,
My organization built it,
okay.
and the next winter, the ice took it all away. So, yeah, it's been done, it failed.
Yeah, parts of that are pretty tough building environment for paving or boardwalk apparently too. Yeah, so. Jolene, more?
Yeah. Is the water quality of Indian Lake safe enough for people to swim there? And I might be able to add a little, I don't know that I can answer that per se, but I can say where we have beaches, we are testing the water with Public Health Madison, Dane County regularly. And so we don't test the water when we don't have a public access beach site. So we don't have the data, and it certainly changes over time. We test any that are actual beaches, advertised beaches.
Yeah. I have swum across.
There's a participant here who says that they have swam across the lake.
that all here?
Are there other comments from the room?
So it was dredged in those days, but that was a long time ago.
There's one more comment. If we can share the survey questions that was sent out as part of the initial public comment period for this project.
Sure.
And I think the second part that isn't written out is, can they still submit those answers, or just a reminder of how they could submit more feedback?
You know, I think you could certainly still answer those questions and submit them. So we can put those back up onto the website. I don't know if it would be like an official other route of the survey, but if you want to use those questions to kind of guide your input to the plan, that would be fine.
That's the last question.
And we're coming up on 9 o'clock here. Gary, do you have some closing words?
Question.
Hmm.
Is there an organized friends group for Indian Lake County Parks?
There is, yeah. Yeah, there is an organized friends group, and I think they work a lot on your trail run. Yeah. And they've been doing, I know Jeff does quite a bit of bat survey out there too, so. Yeah. Well, thanks everybody for coming tonight, and make sure you provide comments on the plan too. Email me, call me, write me, whatever you want to do. Thank you.
Thank you.